Okay, we are again looking at 8.8D, where we will use informal arguments to solve some angles and lines. This is video 2 of probably 3. This is Mr. Taylor. And today we want to look at congruent angles, to say the least. So again, as we take a look through this particular sector of 8th grade math, we can see, and let's start with definitions, that congruent angles are angles whose angle measurements are equal. So you would have an angle that's probably 90 degrees. Well, a congruent angle will also be 90 degrees. Arcs on angles are usually used to indicate congruency. One set of congruent angle will have one arc, and another set of congruent angle will have two arcs. And this is these arcs that they're referring to. Arcs and tick marks, and the tick marks is the little individual marks. We will custom the tick marks on angles can be used to indicate congruency. One set of congruent angle will have one arc with one tick mark, and another set of congruent angles will have one arc with two tick marks, etc. Now, vertical angles. Vertical angles is a pair of non-adjacent angles. Non-overlapping angles formed by two intersecting lines, creating angles that are opposite and congruent to each other. Well, what do we mean? So here we have two intersecting lines. These two lines are intersecting this particular line. Well, if you look with the intersection, we have two angles that are congruent, and they are opposite from each other. One is on one side and one is on the other side of the intersection. These two angles are congruent, and notice they're on one side of the intersecting line and one side of the other intersecting line. The same thing here. Well, just like if these two are congruent and on one side, then these two are congruent and on one side. Also here, notice these have two tick marks of two particular arcs. Okay. Vertical angles. Well, we just talked about vertical angles, so let's move a little further. Sorry, I want to get you confused. Well, parallel lines. These are lines that lie in the same plane, goes forever, in the same plane, and they never intersect. And they're always the same distance apart. Always the same distance apart. So various orientation, including vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and even and uneven, or should I say offset lengths, can be parallel lines. Lines that are parallel may or may not contain parallel markings. And this is what we mean by the markings. So it could contain the markings, or it could not contain the markings. These are the markings. These are not the markings. This is the marking. No markings. Markings. No markings. Okay? Now, let's look at a transversal. A transversal is a line that intersects two or more lines. Parallel lines, transversal. Lines, transversals. I think what is very important is that we keep our mind on these definitions, and it's just a good thing. Print this off, get you some index cards, and take notes, and then that way you can keep those cards. And the first couple of little quizzes or in class assignments we have, you can use your notes. Alternate interior angles. So the author is saying when two parallel lines are cut, intersected, by a transversal. So here are our two parallel lines. Here's a transversal. Alternate interior angles are formed on opposite sides of the transversal and on the inside of the parallel line. So really good definitions, because it is plain English, as Mr. MacArthur told me earlier. It's just English. So when you look at the first example, it says you have line A and B, and they're parallel. But they're cut by the transversal C. So when they're cut, they form alternate, one side, other side, alternating sides. They form alternate interior. They're interior because they're on the inside of the parallel lines. Alternate interior angles. And these angles are formed on the opposite sides of the transversal. So if we remember what we just said about opposite angles, if they're on the opposite side of this transversal, they are congruent. Okay? So if these two are congruent on opposite side of the transversal, then these two angles also are congruent on opposite side of the transversal. All right, let's move along. Now remember, anytime you may need to, please stop this thing. We're going to have some problems on here for you to work. Actually, we've already posted those. Stop this thing and go back. And it's just good English. Good English. If you can read, again, my suggestion to you would be reading here and then coming down here and looking at the examples, because these examples are straight with what you're reading there. Same side interior angles. And we're going to have to put all of this together. So make sure you take good notes. Same side interior angles. So we got this particular two parallel lines, and they're cut by or should I say intersected, we call it cut by this transversal. And when that happens, supplementary, remember what supplementary means, same side interior angles are formed between the parallel line and the same side of the transversal. So we are inside. So we are cut by this transversal. So what they're saying is this angle and this angle equals 180 degrees. They are same side, on the same side of the transversal. They are inside the parallel line, so they are interior angles. And they are supplementary. So these two angles measure 180 degrees. This particular, so what we're saying, if these two measure 180 degrees, these two measure 180 degrees. Same side of the transversal, inside of the parallel line. So the angles are transversal. If you notice something, you notice we have these opposite interior angles. This angle, interior, opposite of this angle, and these angles are congruent. Let me mark that down so you can see that. We have this angle and this angle. These angles are congruent. So is this angle and this angle. And it tells a story right here if you can see it. Okay, let's move on. Again, we're really over some good definition, some good arguments that you're going to have to present on these test courses. Very good arguments. Okay, so let's take a look at alternate exterior angles. And then once we do that, I believe we'll go ahead and maybe call this one, close this one, and then look at another one maybe tomorrow. So we have alternate exterior angles. Now, exterior, it's just as plain reading. You don't want to make anything really complicated out of it. The reading speaks for itself. Alternate exterior angles. When two parallel lines is cut by a transversal, congruent, same size, alternate exterior angles. Here's the line, here's the two parallel line, so you alternating from exterior from this one to this one, or form. And they are formed on the outside of the transversal. The outside and the opposite side of the transversal. These angles are also congruent. Well, if that's the case, if these two are on the outside, the opposite of the transversal, then these two, see, right here, are also opposite exterior angles. Guys, it's just really good reading. It just really makes sense. All right, we'll take a look at same side exterior angles, and that will be definitely our last one. This is 7 different slides we'll catch, and we'll make this our last one. So same side exterior angles. Now we just looked at opposite, so let's look at same side. When two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, supplementary same side exterior angles are formed outside the parallel lines on the same side of the transversal. Parallel lines on the outside, and here, check this out. Outside, same side of the transversal, and these are supplementary. So that means these two angles equals 180 degrees. Well, if these are supplementary, then these two are supplementary. And remember, this angle will move here because it's opposite, and this angle will move here because it's opposite. Okay, really just, really good dialogue here. So we'll go ahead and take the rest of this up on the next video. We should be able to cover the last 5 slides, but they will get more so engulfed in putting them all together. So stop it when you need to. Go back and play it over and over and over. Print your notes. Take a look at your notes while you're working. And especially the examples that we have. These examples are going to be able to definitely define what we're talking about here. Anyway, this is Mr. Taylor, guys, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening.